My name is Bettina Wallace. I live in St Anne's in Nottingham. I'm originally from Jamaica. When I arrived, I travelled with my sister, who's 2 years older than me. I was 9 years old. I'd just had my 9th birthday, the June, and I think I arrived here the September. So that was interesting because my grandmother, who I lived with and who looked after me, took us to the airport. And I said to her, when I knew I was coming to England, I cried, "Don't want to go, don't want to leave you." And she didn't want me to leave her either. And she said to me, "Don't worry, because when the aeroplane lands, I'll be right here." And as a 9-year-old child, you hear that and you have no concept of the distance that you're traveling. So when the aeroplane landed, or when I was in the aeroplane, I saw all these pretty lights looking out the window. It was amazing. But then when I came to realization, my grandmother wasn't there, and I just bawled. I wanted to go back home straight away. So that was fun, but heartbreaking at the same time because I had to leave my grandmother. My life in Nottingham has been interesting. I landed in Manchester, I think it was. Can't remember where I landed. In 1962 as a 9-year-old girl. And I've always lived in Nottingham. Living in Nottingham, interesting because every black person knew everybody else. The people on the street came out to meet me and my sister. I think my father was the first black man to buy a house just outside the castle. Interesting times living in Lenton. I lived in Lenton, went to Lenton Primary School, then I went to Cottesmore Secondary Modern School, which is no longer there. Couldn't do anything without a elder seeing you and asking you, "Does your mum know you're here? Does your dad know you're here? What you doing?" So it was more of leaving a community in Jamaica to come into a community here. So it was really, really nice. As I said, I've always lived in Nottingham. I've never wanted to move. Had my children here, went to college here, went to universities a couple of times, but didn't do a degree. What can I say about Nottingham? Interesting. I have a few family members here outside of my children, but not a lot. My father was quite lucky because my father decided that his children weren't going to live in rented rooms, so he bought a house. I think he said his house cost him £3,000 then, and he bought a house and he rented out a room to an elderly couple. It was a 3-bedroom house, and then he had the other 2 rooms for himself and our parents. My father comes from a strong line of, his surname was Wind, very strong line, and they don't talk about their emotions. They don't talk about their struggles. And I think I've come, not so bad now, but I've come the same way, whereas you grit your teeth, you put your shoulder to the wheel and you do what it is that you have to do. And I think my father did that. I know there was a white minister called Mr. Tucker who lived in the local area, and I know that he helped my father a lot. My father broke his foot. He used to take my dad to the hospital. So I think there might have been some white folks around who was very sympathetic. I have no idea how my father ended up buying a house because he never said. And as children, you don't ask those questions because it's big people's business. So you don't ask those questions. I hate the term Windrush because Windrush is a ship. I never came on a ship. I came on an aeroplane, a BOAC aeroplane. And I take great pride in saying that. I came on an aeroplane. So growing up in Jamaica, even at 9 years old, you knew nothing about Windrush. I remember when I came, some years as I grew older, my father said he wanted to go to America to become a farm labourer. My mum was pregnant with me at the time, and he said if he was a boy, he'd get to go. I ended up being a girl, and I didn't get approved, so he wasn't too best pleased with that. So for me, it's only since this scandal has taken place that I've heard about Windrush. People who know me will tell you that I will tell you I am a Jamaican, born under the British flag, but denied a British passport. Well, apparently it would appear that some people tried to get passports and couldn't get passports because they probably came up on their parents' passport, whereas my sister and I had our own passport. So we came up as children and to join our parents, and it did say in the passport that the Queen offered us safe travel to England. So I automatically thought I was a British citizen, and I will still hold true to that I am, because I was born under that flag. It was when Enoch Powell did his Rivers of Blood speech, and he said that children who were born in the UK to parents from the Caribbean would be sent home. So I then begged my mother for my passport at 20, because she held on to it, and my birth certificate, as they do, and she wouldn't let me have it. So one day when she'd gone to work, I decided to go and search, and I found it. And it was then I realised that it had been crossed out. Even though it said on it, it's a British passport, it had been crossed out and said that I was a Commonwealth citizen. So I then decided to apply for a new passport, and I was told I couldn't get one. At that time, one of my father's cousins was High Commissioner of Jamaica. So I wrote to him, and I can't remember whether he wrote back to me, but it was after that that I decided that I was going to get naturalised, and I paid and got naturalised. When I contacted the passport office said to me, if your parents had renewed your passport within 5 years, you would have automatically got a new one. And my response was, well, they didn't come to stay. So at 9 years old, my parents had no idea that we were going to travel, and we didn't travel as children, and my parents didn't travel until we were much older. So I felt that I was denied that. I think as a young black child, I struggled in school. I didn't understand what an 11 plus was. I was 9, 2 years later I was doing 11 plus. Don't do that. We struggled because I am your typical young Jamaican girl. I speak patois, I cook Caribbean, Jamaican. And I was the one in class who would say, I don't understand, please explain. I don't understand, and my hand was always going up, and it was like, oh yeah, well, she doesn't understand. But they never spent the time to get to really understand where we were coming from. You know, you come to a country where in the sun's shining every day, you're wearing summer dresses, and you come here and you're wearing cardigans and coats and gloves. And, you know, when my sister got chilblain, thinking, what on earth is that? And her fingers and her toes were swollen. So yes, there was a disregard. They made no preparation for us to come. Because at the time they said to my parents and the older generation, come, we need you. We need your skills. We need your this. We need your that. So they came, and then they realized that, oh my God, there's too many of them, in inverted commas, coming into the country. At that time, 1962, Jamaica became independent, and I left just after the independence, and my passport was stamped just after independence. So it was like, you're independent, you don't need us anymore. So no, you're not going to stay, you're just going to come, work, and then go back home, because most of the elder generation came with that 5-year plan. So we live in a society which is forever changing. Racism has got more covert. Before it was quite a, they'd say it. Now people are finding new words to describe racism. It's like when I hear organizations talk about they have a equality, diversity, and inclusion policy, and I'm saying, whoa, you got that? And they'll say, yeah. I said, well, hang on, I've been equal, I've been diverse and I've been inclusive all my life. So when did you just decide that that was a new word because you had equal opportunities and then you had all this racism training and then the next, whoever comes up with this EDI, and I just think, stop. Enough is enough. Just treat people. If you are an employer, an organization that want the best in your organization, you will not see color. You know, I remember going to interviews where I was the only black person in the room. Now people are bending over backwards to get a black person to sit on an interview panel with them. So, you know, we've gone full circle. Back in the day when you saw a job advertised, it was you need a degree in this and a degree in that. I don't have a degree, and I don't think a degree defines me. I think my skills, my personality defines me. So with that attitude, I would look at jobs and think, I can do that. And I'd just put in an application. And when I got to the interview, that was when I actually sold myself and said, well, look, you don't have to have a degree to talk to people. You don't have to have a degree to understand another woman, another black woman, because we may all be black, but we all have different needs and different skills. So yes, I feel that my attitude has portrayed through my career. I've worked for local authority, I've worked for the civil service, and then in 2015 I went and retrained as a florist. Before that I was doing cakes and cake decorating, and I wanted to combine the two, and I did that successfully for quite a while, and then I thought, can't be bothered with this anymore. Retirement is lovely, but you don't get a salary. I've just been appointed on a casual basis to work with the University of Nottingham to look at dementia amongst the African Caribbean community. It keeps you active, and I get knowledge I can pass on to people in the community. When I can say to an organisation, and I'm also trustee of a number of organisations, I've done a lot of work for the British Heart Foundation, cancer research, or I've done some work for AstraZeneca. I am that person that will ask you, who in your organisation looks like me? I can't talk for the whole of the black community, but I can talk as a black person, as a black woman. If I'm experiencing this, other black women are, and they've taken it on board, and I've helped them as much as I can. I've been able to share my life story, my health story. I've had high blood pressure since probably 2010. Didn't know I had it until I collapsed on a train coming home from Sheffield one night. It was then they realised that I have an history. My grandmother, my mother, my father, and it wasn't picked up in time. Was it just before COVID or during COVID? I got out of breath, and then they realised that I've got what they called mild heart failure. I've got a valve in my heart that's doing that, and the blood's going up and coming back, and it shouldn't. So I've got that. December of last year, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. I'm very positive. I never cried with anything that's happened to me and says, oh Lord, why me? I've just taken it in my stride and said, right, I've got this. I just need to get on. Because I remember saying to the consultant at the hospital, right, here's what you're going to do. First with the heart, operate. And he said, no, I can't. It's too dangerous. It's not that bad. The cancer, hear what you do. This is my body, my cancer. Go in, do what you need to do. If you need to take the breast, take the breast. But it was only a P shape, so I was quite lucky. So I think my positivity in life rubs off on other people. And I tell people, you can't be me because there's only one of me. But if you don't say how you feel, no one's going to take you seriously. I'm not about skirting around the houses. They will tell you, if there were elders around, will tell you as a child, I never mince my words. I would just come straight out and say it. As you've got older, you become more tactful and you've learned to master your audience better. So I think, yes, I have had a positive outlook on the organisation, the people I've worked with. I think my children have seen how I operate as a parent, and they've mimicked me. But as they've grown older themselves, they have learned to adapt and to do what's right for them. My thing to them is, nobody can kill you for speaking your mind. So if it offends, say it offends. My last 2 grandchildren are of mixed parentage. And for the eldest, who's a girl, I talk patois to her. And her mother wants her to learn it. So for her, I and my grandson, as he's growing up, I don't have to, but I try and say to them, well, look, she's 5, she's bright. I don't want to bombard her with a lot of negativity. She talks about her being light brown, I mean being dark brown, and granddad being darker brown, and granny and pop-ups being pink. That's okay for me because she's only 5. But I think as she grows older, she will have a lot of negativity. You know, are you black, are you white? And I'm hoping I will be around to say to her, I am me, because that's my favourite saying. I have to be me. So it doesn't matter whether I am mixed white, mixed black. We're all mixed in some shape or the other. I think the Caribbean culture is the most mixed up in terms of ethnicity. I've got Chinese on my mother's side, Indian on my father's side, Scottish on my husband's side. So we are a melting pot. So the question that you ask is, how have I prepared them? Do what I do, but make it fit for you. But then as you get older, you adapt it to suit your needs. For the generation coming up and those that will follow me, I think the change has already started. Back in my day, not many black people went to university. Young people today, I am blown away when I see young people in their early 30s that have got doctorates. So the change has already started because they've seen the struggles that their parents, their grandparents have made. And they are saying, not in my lifetime. There will still be discrimination, but these young people today, they have the vocabulary and the words and the knowledge to squash some of those things. It may be hard, but it will never be as hard as how it was for people who came here in the 50s and the 60s. Children born here in the 70s are, as the film says, waiting to exhale, and they've exhaled beyond. You know, when I see young people that have got degrees, I feel so proud as though they were my own children. The young people and those coming up just have to make sure they're supporting each other and they're not fighting against each other. Everybody is in the same pond, but they go down different channels to get what they want to get and where they want to go. And they are being insightful and having a great impact.